How's it going? Our first little lesson, we're going to kind of cover all of Chapter 8 in one lesson. So a lot of it will be review, but you're going to get a little bit of new stuff. So our goal for today is I can graph a parabola in vertex form. Okay. We talked at the start of the chapter about what parabolas are. They're these kind of U-shaped graphs, and we learned the most important point on the graph probably is the vertex, which is either the bottom or the top depending on which way it opens. And some other important points are the x-intercepts, where it crosses the x-axis, and those are always going to be some number, comma, 0. The y value will always be 0. And then the y-intercept is important, and it's always 0, comma, some number. On this one it's 8. And then the other important part is the axis of symmetry, which is the line that splits the graph in two, and it's always x equals whatever the x value of the vertex is. Okay? So that's what parabolas look like. This is what vertex form looks like. So we notice we have this a here, that's just going to be a number. H is going to be a number, and k is going to be a number. And the nice thing about vertex form is once you get the hang of it, you can get the vertex super easy. It's just whatever this number is, comma, whatever that number is. And just like with intercept form, this number is backwards because it has that minus. So if it says x minus 2, that actually means plus 2. So if we look at this example here, we should be able to tell just by looking that the vertex of this graph is positive 2, comma 3. Okay, so I can already, without really doing any math, I can put my vertex on this graph. Okay, that's the nice thing about vertex form. And the new thing I'm going to teach you today is once you know the vertex of any parabola, no matter what form it's in, if it's vertex form or intercept form or standard form, there's kind of normal steps that we're going to take from there. So the first step is we're going to go over 1, up 1, and then we'll go over 2, up 4, over 3, up 9, and we probably won't need to go this far, but just in case, we'll go over 4 and up 16. Okay, so these are the steps every time as long as there's no a. If a is just 1, we're going to take these steps. Okay, so once we found the vertex, I'm going to go over 1, up 1. So starting here, I go over 1, up 1, and then it does the same thing on the other side, over 1, up 1. Then I go over 2, up 4, so 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, notice I start from the vertex every single time. And then if we had room, we would go over 3, up 9, but that would get us, somewhere up here, so we won't worry about that point. So that is our parabola right there. Okay, so you find the vertex, which if it's in vertex form is pretty easy, and then we're just going to do these regular steps. Okay, that's if there's no a. Let's look at one where there is an a. This one's a little bit different. We have a is 1/2 at the front. So what that means if we have an a at the front is we're basically going to multiply all of these y values by whatever that number is. Okay, so we're going to multiply all the y's by 1/2. Okay, first let's find the vertex. It's this number backwards, so instead of positive 1, it's negative 1, comma, negative 4. Okay, so I'm going to graph the vertex first. Negative 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. Negative 4. I always label my vertex, and then I forgot to on the last one, but we probably should have drawn our axis of symmetry. Okay, now we're going to do these 4 steps here, but we're going to multiply all the y values by 1/2 because a is 1/2. So instead of going over 1, up 1, we're going to go over 1, up 1/2. So starting here, I go over 1, up 1/2, over 1, up 1/2. Okay, and then instead of over 2, up 4, we're going to go half of 4, which is 2. So over 2, up 2. Over 2, up 2. And then over 3, half of 9 is 4.5. So over 3, 1, 2, 3, up 4.5 would be right there. Right there. We probably don't need another point, but we'll do one more. This would be over 4. Half of 16 is 8. So over 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, up 8, it'd be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then over 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, up 8 is right there. There is our parabola. It might be a little bit tricky to tell, but this parabola is kind of squished this way. It has a vertical shrink, so it's a little bit shorter and wider than regular. Okay, so if there's an a, we multiply all the y values by a. Let's look at one more. Okay, we're going to graph this one. It's y equals negative 2, x plus 2 squared plus 5. So we should be able to tell just by looking that our vertex is negative 2, comma 5. Remember, it's backwards here, so if it says plus 2, it means minus 2. That means my vertex is negative 2 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to put a dot there, and then I'm going to put my axis of symmetry. Okay, and then we notice on this one a is negative 2. It's exactly like it was on the last one. So we're going to multiply all the y values by negative 2 since it has a negative at the front. What's that going to do? It's going to flip the graph over, so it's going to open down, as you'll see in a second. So instead of over 1, up 1, we're going to go over 1, down 2. So over 1, down 2, over 1, down 2. And then instead of over 2, up 4, 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. So it's going to go over 2, down 8. So over 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, down 8. And then this one would be right there. So there's our parabola. Okay, I notice I tried to make it round at the top. It's a little tricky when they get super skinny, but try to remember these are U shapes and not V shapes. Okay, so that negative flipped it over, so it's going down, and the 2 is a stretch. It's stretched it this way, so it gets skinnier and taller. Okay, now look at, just to remind you how to do standard form and intercept form. We'll do one of each of those. Okay, if you remember, standard form looks like this. It's ax squared plus bx plus c. And you might remember a few things about this. For one thing, c is the y-intercept, so we could put a dot on negative 4 right there. Maybe you remember, maybe not, but the way you find the axis of symmetry in standard form is negative b over 2a. So our a is 3 and b is 6. So our axis of symmetry for this one is negative 6 over 2 times 3. 2 times 3 is 6. And negative 6 divided by positive 6 is negative 1. So our axis of symmetry is negative 1. Okay, that means we could reflect this point and get another one right there. Okay, after we found the axis of symmetry, the way we found the vertex is we take this number and plug it into that equation to find the y value. If you got a calculator, this is easier, but we can still do it. So let's see. Negative 1 squared is 1. See, 6 times negative 1 would be negative 6. Minus 4, so I get 3 minus 6 is negative 3. Negative 3 minus 4 is negative 7. That means our vertex is negative 1, negative 7. Okay, now using what we just know here, I said that wrong, what we just learned here, once we know what the vertex is, we can do these steps, and since our a is 3, we're just going to multiply all these numbers by 3. So instead of going over 1 up 1, it's going to go over 1 up 3. Well, we actually already have that point because it was the y-intercept, but maybe we forgot that that's the y-intercept. Same thing here, over 1 up 3. And then we would go over 2 up, let's see, 3 times 4 is 12. So over 2 and up 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then same thing over here, over 2, up 12. So there's our very skinny parabola right there. Okay, so using this new stuff that we learned, once you know what the vertex is, you can just multiply a times all the y values and do your steps this way. It's another way to graph in standard form. If you like it the other way, where you remember that this is the y-intercept and you remember that you can reflect that, that's fine also. You have a couple different options now. Okay, we're going to do one more in intercept form, and then you guys can practice some at home. Alright, intercept form, remember, it looks like this. It's a, x minus p, x minus q, and the nice thing about this is p and q are the x-intercepts, but we have to remember, since they're in parentheses, they're backwards, right? So if q says minus 3, it actually means plus 3. If we look at this one, our two x-intercepts are negative 3 and positive 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. There's our two x-intercepts. The way we found the x of symmetry in intercept form was to find the number that's halfway between those two. This one's not too hard to tell. It's positive 1. Remember, if you can't tell for sure, just add the two numbers together. So negative 3 and positive 5 divided by 2. That'd be 2 over 2, which is 1. Okay, you just average the two numbers. Once we knew the x of symmetry, just like with standard form, we're going to take that number and plug it into this equation, and that'll tell us the y value. So it's going to be 1 plus 3, 1 minus 4. See, 1 plus 3 is 4. And then 1 minus, oops, I wrote that wrong. 1 minus 5 is negative 4. And remember, these two numbers should always be opposites. If they're not, you mess something up. And then, let's see, negative 1/4 times negative 4 is just positive 1. Positive 1 times 4 is positive 4. That means our vertex is 1, 4. So over 1, up 4. Okay? Just like with the other two, once we know the vertex, we can just follow these 4 steps here, or as many of them as we can fit. And since a is negative 1/4, we're going to multiply all the y's by negative 1/4. So instead of going over 1, up 1, it's going to go over 1 and down 1/4. Well, it's going to be a little bit hard to graph, but I don't know. About there, probably. Instead of over 2, up 4, 4 times negative 1/4 is negative 1. So we're going to go over 2 and down 1. That one's a little nicer to graph. Okay, and then instead of over 3, up 9, 9 times negative 1/4 is negative 2.25. So we're going to have to estimate again. So over 3 and down 1, 2, a little bit more than 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, right about there. Okay. If we did the next step, we would end up with our two x-intercepts, but we already graphed those. So. Oops, I missed there, but there's our graph. Okay, so if you remember these steps, then I would try to memorize them. If not, write them down somewhere. But you can use those to graph any one of your parabolas in whatever form you have. You just have to find the vertex and then follow those 4 steps. Alright, it is your turn. Get a piece of paper, pause the video, and I want you to try to graph this one. Okay, find the vertex, which should be pretty easy, and then remember those 4 steps. Okay, so pause it. When you unpause it in about 10 seconds, I'll have the answer key up here and you can see if you did it right. Alright, that's what yours should look like. Vertex is negative 4, 7. The x of symmetry is x equals negative 4. If you made it that far, if you did all 4 of the steps, your y-intercept should be negative 1. So that's what your graph should look like. Alright, that is it. You should know how to graph parabolas now, no matter what form it's in. Find the vertex and then use those 4 steps to find the other points. Okay. Your job is to practice this. I'm going to post on the Google Classroom a whole bunch of practice problems. I will also put a copy of my notes that are all filled in. Okay, so you will have some practice problems. Most of them will be vertex form like this. I'll put a couple standard form and a couple intercept form in there as well, so you can practice those. Once you get all those practiced and you think you have it down, email me. Remember, use my full name, Aaron Young, at mvsd320.org, and I will send you a little, I don't know what we're going to call them, quizzes. I think I called it a comprehension check, but I'm going to send you a couple graphs to do. You will graph those, take a picture of it, and email it to me, and that will be what this week's grade is based on. Okay? Please let me know if there's something I can do to make this work better. I know the lighting's weird. I got weird shadows on here and stuff. So some of that stuff there's not a whole lot I can do with, but let me know if you want these to be longer or shorter or whatever I can do. Remember my office hours, I'll post a link to my Zoom, and you can come video conference with me on Zoom. If you have any questions, that's Tuesday, Thursday at 10 a.m. and then Friday evening at 8. Feel free to discuss on the Google Classroom. You guys can talk to each other on there about what's going on as well. And yeah, so every week you'll get one of these videos. I'm probably going to have some guest teachers come in because I don't want to do it every week. So I got some friends who will probably come in and teach you guys a little bit as well. Good luck. Please let me know if you have questions. See you next week.